Dr. Bear, teacher wellbeing is something that we at youHQ are really looking at trying to support. Is there anything that springs to mind for you, specifically with teachers, where they may be able to think carefully about how they can look after themselves?
Just, I wish there was like a one size fits all. If you do this, everything will be okay. Like I'm yet to find the experience of doing that. I guess the biggest part of this, particularly teachers whose, I guess, work-life boundaries can get incredibly blurred, right? There's no easy sort of cut off to say this is my home time and this is not. Protecting time to look after yourself is the most important thing. Like the best advice I ever got when I was doing my training, in terms of looking after my own well-being, is working out not just sort of when my working hours were. It was work out the time you need for you, and then you can figure out the other stuff, the other responsibilities you've got. The when you can do your marketing, all the extra stuff after that. So what time do you need for you? And I guess the mechanics of that are they're so different from person to person. But without the time and energy protected for it, there will always be something that gets squeezed in front of it. So that has to be the sort of the fundamental part of it.
There's got to be a certain level of selfishness when we're talking about.
Well, we talk about selfishness, or like you're saying it like, we always say it like it's a bad thing, right? Selfishness. If you don't look after your needs, you will suffer. And unfortunately, the characters that often get drawn to teaching and the dynamic that develops is you start to increasingly prioritize other people above yourself. And there is only so far that stretches, right? If you don't look after you, you're going to suffer and you won't be able to do it for long. So as much as it might feel uncomfortable, it is a necessity. It's not a luxury to look after yourself. If you don't do this, you won't be able to do it for long.
In jobs like teaching and a job like yours, it's interesting to hear you say when you have a job which is investing in people, and obviously for teachers a lot of that investment goes into the students, then I think maybe it can potentially be even more difficult to then think about yourself. Do you think that's true as well?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Teachers, social care, healthcare, all make, ultimately terrible patients in terms of being able to look after themselves. They're often the ones that are, looking after. Like no one gets into this for the glory or the plaudits or the pay. They get after it because they're invested in sort of supporting other people in whatever capacity that is. And a big part of that is getting esteem from it, right? It feels good to be supporting other people. But if you don't look after yourself, like you won't feel good about it. You'll feel resentful, you'll feel rubbish, and you won't last. A big part of this is in terms of like well-being, isn't just a short, sharp, what's the sort of snappy, jazzy thing that you can do right now? It's what's the sustainable stuff that's going to allow you to sort of feel good for longer. And I guess, we've spoken before about the temptation to sort of wait for the holidays to do stuff, to sort of, to go long and think, actually, I've got, half term or some holidays coming up in X, Y, Z amount of time. The difficulty is then you end up sort of pushing back and wait until you're sort of at the brink or beyond to sort of feel like you need to feed stuff in. A big part of this is it doesn't have to be sort of profound. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be little moments, an hour here, 20 minutes there, 5 minutes there. These little bits of sustainable sort of protected time for you are going to be the things that genuinely make a difference in the long term, rather than you getting a decent summer holiday. You wait 3 weeks after the summer holiday when you're back in October, how do you think you're going to be feeling? It's not going to be incredibly fresh. This holiday won't sustain you through the year or for the next 6 weeks or 12 weeks. It will last you 2 weeks. Great as it is, you know what it's like.
Teachers should not guilt themselves into flogging themselves to the holidays, because that's not going to be good for them long term. That's what we're saying, right?
Oh, it's such a it's such a dangerous thing, because there is always more that you can do. There is no upper limit, right? And what the difficulty comes is that when there is always more that you can do, you can get drawn into feeling like you're not doing enough. And I guess regardless of what you end up doing, is there, what time do I set for myself? I can figure out the rest of it once I do that. Okay, I need this amount of time, a week, a day, whatever it might be. And then I'm going to do the stuff that's genuinely for me. And that's the stuff that's going to make a difference. That's the stuff that's going to reduce my stress, protect me from future stress, give me the space to tolerate all the stresses from work, and make me remember that I'm not defined by teaching. It's a big part of my life, but it's not all of me. And that's important too, right?
If there's a teacher listening to this who is loving everything that you're saying and really gets it, but it's just feels so stretched and so overworked and swamped and drowning and all that kind of stuff, what are some simple tips and takeaways based on the stuff that you said that maybe they can think about moving forward, they might be able to apply to their own lives?
I guess in just thinking about, I've said it before, and I tend to hammer home sort of what feels like, maybe, I don't know, it feels boring because I say it so often, but like the fundamentals, if you don't look after your sleep or invest in trying to get as good a sleep as possible, you're going to struggle. If you don't look after what you're eating, if you don't exercise. And another big one is if you don't feel like you're connecting with people. Like, not many people don't want to be connected with other humans. We're quite social creatures, that would depend on it. So what opportunities do you have to sort of look after these things? I guess the other fundamentals that make a difference to how we feel are, we all need a sense of enjoyment, of fun, of satisfaction, of achievement. If there are opportunities to get that, like work doesn't often or always provide it. So where else can you get it from? It doesn't have to be all the time. It's just bits of it sustainably through your week or your life. Like, that's the stuff that's going to really make a difference.